So now we've finished with the silver Mini for the time being. We can do a bit of a quick swap over here and see if we can sort this black Mini out, which has got some sort of rattle with either the gearbox or the clutch. So the silver one can probably go to bed now for the winter, because after the black Mini I'll be going on to that Peugeot 207 there, which is under the green cover, which has got a blown engine. So I would like to take that engine apart, but for the moment I'll get this one in the garage and let's get this silver one into the barn. There we go. See ya next year. Alright, let's try and mend this car. Hi and welcome to this video where I'm back on the black Mini, and the intention is to remove the gearbox, which is the G-Trag 52BG from this car. So this is a 2006 MINI One with a 7 on it, and the reason I'm going to have to remove this gearbox is when I did the timing chain in my previous videos, which I thought that was the cause of the rattle. I think it was partly the rattle. As the car was driven back out of the garage, there was a sound of like ball bearings flying around the bell housing. Now that obviously could be the release bearing for the clutch, which if it's destroyed itself, which I'm hoping is what's causing the noise, and it's not the gearbox. These are the better gearboxes compared to the silver Mini, which had the Midlands gearbox. This G-Trag one is a better quality one. Obviously in the Cooper S you get an even better quality gearbox. That's the 6-speed, which is uprated clutch and also has a dual mass flywheel, I believe. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Now you can change the clutch by just sort of splitting it. You can actually just get your hand in there and actually do it like that. I'm not going to even attempt that. I'm going to just do it conventionally by the manual, which is to remove the subframe. Now that does make it somewhat of a big job, I realise that, but I'm going to stick with what the manual says because that's what the manual says. But like I said, in the real world you could probably cut corners and perhaps just loosen the subframe on one side or whatever and ease the gearbox out. I'm aware of that, but like I said, I'm just going to stick with what the manual says and follow the manual to do the job. And hopefully I'll be changing the clutch and the release bearing, getting it back together, and hopefully this one will then be able to go back on the road after an MOT. So anyway, so hopefully you'll enjoy this series, and thank you very much for watching. So this is the rattle that can be heard from the transmission area with the clutch pedal up. With the clutch pedal depressed, the rattling stops. Let's start by opening the bonnet. So driver's side down there by the pedals, is our lever, and on the right hand side is the yellow lever to raise the bonnet. So with the bonnet up, we can clearly see the brake reservoir there, the coolant reservoir, the power steering reservoir, the ABS pump there, and the air filter housing, as well as the coolant filler cap. And then in this photo we can see the spark plug HT leads and coil pack. We can also see the air conditioning condenser there at the front, the battery, and the fuse stroke relay box. So let's jack the front of the car up and make safe using axle stands. So you may wish to just loosen the wheel nuts first before actually jacking the car up. So that's our jacking point. So we can lift this car up. Now obviously we need to put it on axle stands, so that does give a bit of an issue how you do that. So I tend to use the subframe with a jack, and then that frees me up to pop an axle stand under each side. So this is the point that I tend to jack up on, though I'm not actually sure whether the manual says you can actually jack up on the subframe, but it does seem to be quite a strong part of the car. So I'll get some mats down now. I absolutely love these mats. Makes all the difference to working under a car. And see if we can see anything obvious that might be wrong, perhaps like a cracked gearbox or something like that. So let's see what we can see. So under the car we do have the air conditioning pump there, the engine, gearbox. You can see the power steering electric pump, the control arm bushes that are very difficult to get to, the exhaust, and the drive shafts. So looking underneath, I can see there's some oil. Now it's fairly clean, but I'm thinking that's engine oil and not gearbox. I'm hoping it's not gearbox oil. That would be quite disastrous. So let's check this gearbox, and time to drain the gearbox oil and see if the oil is low or contains any metal debris. So hopefully draining the oil will tell us whether we've got an immediate issue with the gearbox. So what we'll do is we use an 8mm hex key on a breaker bar, and let's have a look at the oil. Now hopefully plenty of oil will come out. Be quite worrying if there's not a lot of oil in there. So they're normally filled with about 2 litres of oil, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sieve this in the hope of catching any debris, if there is any debris. Obviously I'm hoping there isn't any debris, because that would spell possible disaster for the gearbox. But the oil actually looks clean. Now I thought that might have been a magnetic plug there. I think on the other gearbox, on the Silver Mini, that was magnetic. This one doesn't seem to be magnetic. So it's drained, and there's nothing in the sieve at all. So that's a pretty good sign. So we can pop this drain cap back on. Now I won't tighten it fully, but when you do come to tighten it, you do need to torque it to 32 to 40 Newton meters. Alright, so let's see what quantity we've got there. So it looks like it's bang on 2 litres. There's definitely nothing in the sieve, and it's definitely about 2 litres. So hopefully the gearbox is okay. So moving on now, we'll remove the front road wheels. So since I forgot to actually break the bolts loose, I'm going to enlist Luke to sit in the car and press the brake pedal so I can undo them. There we go. Get that brake on. So is your foot on the brake? Yeah? Yeah. So with 17mm socket on a breaker bar, I'll just crack these loose now. Okay. Just release. Yeah, you can go now. And he's had his little bit of fame. The excitement. Okay, so we can now just spin these off. And see a nice rusty caliper there. As you can see, this car's not been going anywhere recently. So we'll cheat on the other side. I'm just going to crack them off with an air impact gun. So with the air impact gun, at least you don't need anyone pressing the brake pedal. It does save you that problem. So we can now remove the wheel arch liners, and we'll just show a photo of that. I'll colour it in red so you can see what we need to remove, and also a photo showing the fixings that are on that liner. So I'll start with the posi-drive screwdriver, and we can get the 3 screws out first. So there's one at the top, one here, and one at the front underneath the bumper, and then the rest of them are just little plastic pop rivets, which in theory should come out by rotating with a screwdriver and then popping them out, but sometimes they break, and you might find you need to just push the centre bit through, and then you can remove the outer part. So there's always that one hidden at the back as well. Right, so that's all nice and loose. Now an 8mm socket is used for the bumper bolts, though you can actually remove that once you've taken the lining out, because that's more for the exterior bumper. Right, so the lining is now free. Oh, one more there. Yeah, that one always gets me. It's tucked away right in there. That's a broken one again because I had to push that with a little screwdriver to push the dowel out in the middle. Okay, so once this lining has been removed, we can actually see a little bit more of the car. So yeah, that's your lining. So I'll just show a couple of photos now, and here we can see the suspension strut, the screen wash bottle, the crank pulley, the auxiliary drive belt, and the air conditioning pulley. And in this following photo, which is more relevant because we'll be disconnecting these things next time, we can see the steering track rod end, the anti-roll bar, and the stabilizer link bar. And then finally in this photo we can see the outer ball joint, which will need to be disconnected next time, and also the inner ball joint nut on the control arm. So we now need to just pop over to the other side and do the same. I'll speed most of this up because it's obviously the same as on the other side. So you do find those trim removal tools are quite useful for this, because you can pull those sort of plastic mushroom things out quite nicely. Okay, so now to remove the outer bumper and the inner aluminium bumper carrier. So here's a quick photo showing the fixing locations for this outer bumper. So with an 8mm deep socket, it's actually just one bolt that needs to be removed, and that's the one that's going vertically up. So we'll pop that out, and there are a few posi drives underneath. Some of mine are missing. And then we need a Torx 30 for these two at the front. Actually quite tight, those. Now, I'm not sure if I didn't remove this last time when I did the timing chain. I think I did, because it does look like there's copper grease on those. So anyway, right, so we need to loosen the lighting there. So we've got the indicator and the side light. I think somebody's upgraded mine to LED or something, because it's sort of popped off, and there is a little bit of green corrosion in there, which might be why the LED keeps flickering away. So that's the lights off. So what we can do now is just push the middle of the outer bumper and release that clip. Now don't pull it off too quick, because we have got an ambient temperature sensor here which we need to just unclip. Okay, so that's the outer bumper now removed. So now we're onto the inner bumper, and here you can see all the fixings for that. So we've got 4 nuts and a bolt on each side. So using a 13mm deep socket, you need the deep socket for the two in the middle, these ones here. So that was a nut that just came off. This is your second nut, and on the left is a bolt, like so, and then connecting to the two crush tubes on the subframe are another couple of nuts. So we just get those off. So that's that side unbolted. And then we'll sort of quickly repeat this for the other side. There's the bolts. And then we've obviously got the last 4 bolts to remove. So once this is actually off, we can then see access to the air conditioning radiator or condenser and the cooling radiator. And that is all part of the front modular section, which we will need to be moving forward. I think we've got a spider there. Looks like we've got a little spider sat there on that aluminium frame. He's not moving. Right, so unthread the ambient temperature sensor now, and then we can lift away this part. So I'll just highlight this now so you can see where the air conditioning condenser is, the subframe crush tubes and the engine coolant radiator. Okay then. So in the next video I will be tackling the removal of the subframe, and I'll put a couple of photos here just so you can see what the subframe actually looks like and all the various parts of it that will now need to be removed to access the gearbox. So on to reference photographs, which you can pause to view for longer. We start with the gearbox fill and drain plug and the torque settings. And here's the underside of the engine, and here we can see the subframe, basically the rear of the subframe. Here we can see the sort of the wheel with the control arm, and another view there basically showing the subframe, and this was on top of the engine. And there's the back of the outer bumper, and this just to show you some of the lighting, and the other side. And then onto the inner aluminium member, and that's the back of that. And here we can see the left side basically of the air conditioning condenser, and that's the right side showing the pipework going to it. And here we can sort of see the end of the gearbox with the 2 circles. So you've been watching part 1 of gearbox removal on a 2006 MINI R50 7. And thank you for watching, and I hope this video helps you remove your gearbox or clutch on your car. This video was filmed by me, Mark Savage, in October 2021, and I can be found on Instagram and Facebook under Coats and Gaiters.